Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wee Ood podcast. My name is Cameron. I am here with my co-host Ben. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing very well.
Today, we're going to be doing our first episode, our first real episode, and we're going to start off with the Third Doctor. And now we're going to just be talking about Spearhead from Space, the first Third Doctor story, the first episode of season. Or is it? I always get confused. It's series, season. I'm just going to call it season,
Yeah,
season seven.
it's season 7. Series is for the revival classic and now the,
Then the new series.
15th Doctor. Those both are seasons.
So this story was directed by Derek Martinus. I'm probably butchering that. He basically did a couple of other classic Who stories in the 60s, like Mission Unknown, The 10th Planet, Evil the Daleks, The Ice Warriors. This is his last story, Spearheads from Space, so this is his only color story. Interesting fact, this is the only story of his that's not missing an episode.
Really?
This is the one that has, like, the full thing. Just because, like, Ted Planet, missing pot 4, Evil the Daleks, most of it's missing. Ice Warriors is missing 2 pots, and now we are in an era of the show that we don't have to worry about that.
Thank God.
Written by Robert Holmes, this is his 3rd story, and I don't know, we'll get into this in a little bit, but a big improvement from his previous ones.
What did he do before?
He did the Crotons, and he did the Space Pirates.
Oof.
Yeah. So then the script editor is Terran Dix. He was previously already the script editor, starting from last season, going on to this season, and he will be the script editor for the entirety of the Third Doctor. And then the producer it was Derek Sherwin, who was the previous script editor before Terrence Dix. And then he kind of the last season, season 6, he kind of flip flopped roles. He was still the script editor, I believe, for Mind Robber. Then he wrote The Invasion. Then he produced, I think, forget what his role was for Space Pirates, but then he produced the War Games, and he produced this, and then he leaves the show. And we're gonna get a new producer next episode.
I see.
So that kind of goes over like the ends of the credits section. So let's start off with just some facts about this story. I don't know if you know this, Ben, but this is the first color story.
I couldn't tell.
But also, this is the first story, and believe only story to be shot entirely on film. Usually, Doctor Who's kind of a mix between like the studio stuff is digital or whatever the digital tape was back in the day, and then the outside stuff was 16. But because of a strike, this entire episode was shot on 16. So this is the only, I believe,
I thought it looked weirdly good.
yeah. This is the only one, and I believe in the classic show that is like this. Then we move on to I think the TV movie is the only other one that was shot entirely on film. This was another one of those situations where Robert Holmes kind of had the story for a movie, then it got another writer took over and rewrote it, and then he kind of worked it into this story. And I think that's going to be it for the fun facts. We'll get into more of like the behind the scenes stuff later on when we talk about it, just because it's kind of important. Just because we're getting to this new era of the show, so we're going to be talking about the behind the scenes in terms of basically this reboot of the show. So Ben, let's get into the real meat and potatoes. What did you think of Spearhead from Space?
Well, overall, very, very positive. I really liked it. As someone that is kinda used to the '60s show, like, my Doctor Who experience is pretty much exclusively the '60s black and white stuff, which this obviously it's, like, in color, but it even just, like, the vibe is different. They're cutting a lot more, it has a bigger budget, they're doing more, like, filming on location, at least I think it looks that way. And it ends up feeling less kinda like you're watching a stage play and more like a real TV show, which is kinda weird 'cause I'd kinda gotten used to the play kinda feeling to things, and I think it's gonna take some time to kinda readjust the way I kinda perceive, like, what Doctor Who even is as a show. It definitely is it is a reboot.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like they just to go back into like what I was previously saying, we're gonna talk about the behind the scenes stuff. I think maybe we should just get into it now. So basically, previously, as you are aware, they did the shows the Web Affair and they did the Invasion. Both basically were these unit stories that featured the Brigadier and unit, and they were Earth-based invasion type stories.
It wasn't the invasion kinda like a prototype for this exile story?
I don't know per se if that was exactly like the point was, yes, we want to showcase that this can be done. But I think it was,
I wanna say I saw that somewhere. Maybe Clever Dick Films again.
but it definitely you can see like the two stories influence this so much just because one it's this development of unit in the brig,
Mhm.
but just the invasion storyline and basically the more domestic setting. So to give my thoughts about it, I previously watched this story. I've only seen it, I think, the once. It would have been around 2013. I don't know if you're aware of this, Ben, but for 2013, it was the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who.
I did know that, yes.
So BBC America did this series called Doctor Who Revisited. And BBC America rarely showed classic Doctor Who, basically never by that point. So, at least from my era of watching BBC America Doctor Who, which was like 2009 till 2013 by that point. So, it was kind of exciting to be like, "Oh my god, they're showing classic Doctor Who," and each month they were gonna do a Doctor. So, I would have saw this story for the first time when they did the 3rd Doctor and they showed Spearhead during that run. And I remember liking it, but I didn't remember fully what it was. Not what it was, but like fully like the main things. Like I remember him in the hospital, and then they go to that warehouse and they fight, and then it's over. Which I think that kind of makes sense now rewatching because it's like, oh yeah, this story is just so tightly paced
Yeah.
that there's not a lot of things that's like you can not remember from it just because it's like, oh no, every little thing is just leads to the next thing. And it's not like it's not a moment in classic Doctor Who where we're just like, oh yeah, we're just sitting here doing this thing and we're just waiting for for the characters to do the thing so they can get to the next thing. Like this thing is very well paced. Each thing leads to the next thing.
No filler.
No filler whatsoever. And I love just the way it's paced that we have kind of the slow part one where we got the introduction of the Doctor falling from the TARDIS to like the Nestine falling. And then we have basically the unit storyline as well as the Doctor and the hospital storyline. And then kind of moving from that to the Nestine invasion. But like we get the hospital shit and the hospital is great. And then we move on to the more of the unit stuff and unit trying to figure out this invasion storyline as we see the invasion storyline. I one some of the things I just wanted to point out that was some of my favorite things about this story was I loved all of the supporting cast for this story. I loved in particular the face of Clemmings, isn't it Clemmings?
Yeah,
Or
Channing.
Channing. Channing was the main one. Channing, like I loved the face of Channing. I thought he had a really great, sinister, evil-looking face that had like those very eyes. Those very big eyes. Like it just worked. And along with like the guy that was in charge of the factory, and then the guy that gets killed that was working that made the dolls. I think Ransom was his name.
Yeah, that's right.
And then of course the Brigadier is such a great supporting character. Nicholas Courtney is just amazing as the Brigadier. You just love him.
Mhm. I thought the old guy who found one of the spheres, I think Sealy,
Yeah.
he's got, like, that thick accent. I thought he was pretty funny too.
Have you seen Hot Fuzz, Ben?
I did. I saw it when I had COVID, and it was a fever dream.
Do you remember the sequence when the cop, not the cop, I shouldn't say the cop, they're all fucking cops, but when Simon Pegg speaks to Nick Frost and Nick Frost speaks to the other police officer that has the thick accent, who speaks to Dave Bradley, who has even the thicker accent? Do you remember that joke?
I think yeah, yeah, I do.
But that joke just reminded me of that guy. I'm like, I cannot understand this guy without subtitles.
No. which that was something that stuck out to me as well. Having a guy with, like, such a thick accent instead of, like, the standard BBC English accent, which was more common, I think, in the '60s, aside from the random, like, fake American accents, which as an American were always hilarious.
And so, just to go from like the main bullet point to like the small bullet points, I feel like we have to talk about the first thing is this is the first story for the third Doctor, John Pertwee as the Doctor.
Mhm.
So I think we should just discuss what did you think of John as the Doctor in his first outing?
I thought he was good. My mind is definitely kinda still tuned to the second Doctor, so I haven't, like, fully embraced him yet. But he made a very strong first impression. He still has that kinda bit of boyish mischievousness that, like, the second Doctor had, but he's a lot more regal and less of the space hobo that the second Doctor was. He's, like, more handsome and suave, I guess, risen up Liz with his eyebrow maneuvers.
Third Doctor is cool, Ben. As Shooty Gatwa calls, he's a slut, Ben. So my thoughts from this just first episode, because of course I've seen other John Pertwee episodes. I was kind of struck by how he doesn't really talk much for that first part.
Yeah.
That it's kind of just like he has that one moment where he's like, "Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, is that you?" Like, but apart from that, he really is just sick. Slash, he doesn't really do much.
I thought what he did do was pretty funny, though. You know, like, looking in the mirror and saying, like, "I am quite handsome." And then, like, saying, "Shoes. I need my shoes." Like, grabbing him and, like, grasping them to his chest. I thought was pretty funny. And, of course, at the end of that episode, we get a very dramatic chase with him in a wheelchair, which was pretty funny.
And then, like, when we go further into him in the episode, I thought there was a couple of moments that really struck out to me as like, oh no, this man is still the Doctor, as we know. Of course, the moment that stands out for me is that eyebrows moment when he's looking in the mirror and he's saying like, these eyebrows would really work great on this planet that communicates via eyebrows.
Mhm.
That's a very Doctor moment. Like, I could imagine any Doctor doing that, and he just nails it out of the gate for the first episode of just like, oh my god, that is totally the Doctor. Like, oh my god, this guy is the Doctor. But he's also just he's not playing it like any of the other Doctors. But he still has that cadence of like, no, you are Doctor Who.
I think it's very interesting how each Doctor is all clearly playing the same character, but they're also very different.
And a moment that I also have written down from that around that same part of that episode was the moment where Liz asked him, "What are you the Doctor of?" And he says, "Practically everything, my dear." That line I just thought was perfect.
Mhm.
What was going on with the amnesia storyline? Like,
Uh,
I guess we're gonna find out more the next episode and, like, following episodes. I don't remember any of that in the Third Doctor run. So, like, I don't know if they ever bring it back, if that was just like, the kind of the show later on establishes that spoilers, that basically the Doctor has this regeneration sickness. That
mhm.
it kind of we kinda already saw that with Pat and the Power of the Daleks, and now with John and Spearhead, that you kinda the Doctor kinda acts a little weird that first
Yeah.
couple of minutes when he regenerates. And he says to the Lethbridge Stewart, like, "Hey, I have amnesia," but he also doesn't because he remembers, like he remembers the Brigadier, he remembers the TARDIS, he remembers, "Oh, yeah, I have this machine in the TARDIS." He has a very selective amnesia.
Yeah, it wasn't totally dissimilar, I think, from the first to second Doctor transition. You know, the second Doctor is obviously he's very confused for a bit, and he has to read his 500-year diary as he strolls around. So it's similar to that. It didn't really feel like a especially notable amnesia, but maybe the Time Lords did something extra.
Dude, that's what I was thinking of, like, do they mean, like, amnesia and meaning, like, he doesn't remember the Time Lords exiled him?
I mean, he didn't seem to know that he was forced to regenerate.
Yeah, I don't know if he thought that, like, his TARDIS wasn't going to work when he did try it.
Mhm.
Which I did love the sound of when he did try to run off in the TARDIS, that sound that the TARDIS made when, like, it sounded very much like the TARDIS had, like, brakes on it, and I thought that sounded really good for,
Yeah.
like, a low budget 1970s TV show.
I thought it was funny too, and he, like, sheepishly comes out. I'm surprised we didn't see the inside of the TARDIS at all.
Well, that's just budget.
But, I mean, surely they had the set from a couple months ago,
Who knows?
unless they're making a whole new set that, we will see in the future.
I still haven't seen Doctor and the Sailorins, and I still haven't seen Inferno, which we'll get to. But, like, I don't think we see the TARDIS at all this season. I think it is just, like, they just completely got rid of the TARDIS set.
Just Bessie.
Which, of course, we get it kind of alluded to. I don't know how much you are aware of Bessie.
I think I saw a Josh Snares Bessie fan cam. And then, tonight I also did watch the first episode of the Silurians, which had Bessie in it. Spoilers.
I just want to also just bring up the fact that I really loved the Dudley Simpson score in this. I thought that this is one of his best scores. Of course, Dudley is the. I don't know how much you're aware of Dudley Simpson as the Doctor Who composer.
Not at all, but I did notice the incidental music a lot more.
He is kind of the main composer for classic Doctor Who. He did a couple of the 60s episodes, and then he did, believe, a majority of the 70s of Who. He has such a stamp on the show of, like, no, that is how classic Doctor Who sounds. Like, he did that moment in, he did that music in Fairy from the Deep, the wah, wah, wah.
Oh, that was good.
And there's a couple of moments in here of just, like, especially when there is some scary shit going on, like he's really good at doing that creepy, like, noise sound. So let's get into what we thought of the villain of this episode, which is the Autons slash the Nestine.
Yeah,
What did you think of the Autons and the Nestine, Ben?
Auton first. Super freaky. I couldn't tell if it was a mask or if it was, like, just all shit ton of makeup. Pretty freaky and gross. It goes into, like, the uncanny valley. I think, like, the end of the second episode where, like, you see all of them, like, lined up in the factory, and then one of them just starts to move. Really good.
And, like, it's a great villain having it just be like, "Oh, no, we're gonna take a mundane object that or even for this case, a material that's in modern life," which is something that the show I believe this might be one of the first times the show has done this. Correct me if I'm wrong, of just taking the mundane and making it scary. Because it's something that the show after this does a ton, and it's kind of a signature of the show, which I believe was one of the first examples of it was the use of plastic in the Autons.
Yeah, I think, yeah, this is kind of the first instance of that where, like, little British children, who knows? The mannequin in that store window, that could be a secretly an Auton, who knows? Really playing to that kinda fear.
My big question from a modern standpoint, did the 1970s shop window dummies mannequins have those, like, cutout eyes? Or was that just something for, like, the budget?
Something so that the actors could actually walk and see where
Yeah.
they're going.
Or was that, like, actually what they look like? Because, like, regardless, it kinda makes it a little bit more creepy having, like, those eyeballs sockets, and it's like it is like you were saying before, like, it is such a great device for, like, children.
Mhm.
As, like, you could imagine, like, especially, like, at the end of Pot 4 when the shop window dummies are coming out and they're killing everybody.
Yeah, busting through the windows.
Like, you could imagine the kids the next day would, like, pretend to do that on the schoolyard,
Oh, yeah.
and, like,
If I was a kid, this would scare the shit out of me.
oh, and trust me, Ben, like, I didn't watch this as a really little kid, but I watched, Rosa as a little kid, and that one was that as, like, a 7, 8-year-old watching that and just being like I would just go to the mall and be like, "Oh my god, I am scared of this mannequin killing me." And I secretly having a gun and just gonna mow down this whole entire mall. which is like that scene is brutal for a kid. Like those people are not. It's not like those kids. Those people that the autons are killing are like, oh, they're a little bit hurt. No, no, those for all intensive purposes, those people are just dead.
Yeah, some of them disintegrated.
It's something that I like that kind of added some world building to it. Like, or I didn't say world building, but it kind of added like more to the story that they just can't film. Is that the brigadier gets the phone call and the brigadier's like, they're going after the malls and like not the malls, they're going after the banks and like the he's kind of elevates it into be this epic invasion.
I mean, yeah, presumably it's across Britain.
Like, no, it's not presumably. Like he said, it's across the country. It's not just this one street that the filming shows.
Them in the fourth episode, busting through the shop windows, I thought was particularly great. Reminds me a lot of the Cybermen crawling out of the sewers in the invasion.
Yeah, and it definitely has a similar iconic state to that of just like that. This is an iconic moment in the show of the Autons coming out of the displays and killing these people.
Hmm.
And just to before we move on to the nesting, there's something also to the Autons that's kind of like the worker Autons in like the mechanic suit get up, I would say. What do you call that? Is that like a like a mechanic suit?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
The one that's like the blue, the ones that's like kind of just the worker Autons that are,
Oh, the ones that are like running around in the forest.
yeah, and like they're the ones that's at the factory at the end.
Hmm.
Like there's something to those ones as well with that like the blue getup and like the tan like ascot looking thing. And I thought like a moment with them that was pretty intense, I would imagine for a kid, would be that moment where he kills the unit soldier that's in the truck. And like we see blood on the windshield of that guy's death.
Yeah,
The show, like the revival of the show does not feature somebody's blood like that. So it's like it's pretty much you watch that and you're like, my God, that's intense for a kid to see like this man's blood.
it's definitely intense.
To move on to the nesting slash, like I mentioned before, the character Channing. What did we think of them, Ben?
I thought Channing was great. He has like that face where it's like more human than Auton, but there's like just something off about him. You know, it's looks like a constructed face while still obviously not being an Auton face.
Yeah, and like he is such a great villain to have be like the person that voices the villain in the story. And like I was mentioning earlier, like the actor portrays it very well that he is like cold and it gives a performance that feels like not from this world.
Yeah, a piercing stare and
And I find that the idea of the nesting is pretty cool that it is this kind of, how would you describe the nesting consciousness, Ben?
like just like a hive mind.
Yeah, like that's how you would describe it. Like it's this hive mind alien. What did we think of the actual practical effect of it? Did you think that looked cheap, or do you think that that holds up?
The tentacles.
I'm talking about in particular, I should say, because it's this. We have two forms. We have the tentacle form, and then we have those rocks that we see. That's like kind of like glowing.
The rocks I thought were interesting. They look like plastic, but that's what it's supposed to be. Pretty cool. Tentacles, I'm kind of split about. Like, on one hand, I think it looks kind of cool. On the other hand, I can totally picture a guy standing on the other side of the box waving the tentacle around.
But like I think for there's moments in the show that look much more cheap than those tentacles at the end of Pot Four.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And like you were describing beforehand, now that the show doesn't have to worry about creating as many science fiction sets and science fiction costumes,
Yeah, they don't need to make any alien planet sets. They can focus on the creatures.
you can see that they kind of have a bigger budget to do things like that nesting tentacle form.
Yeah, I thought it looked good.
I think in particular, I think John, when he's kind of getting strangled by it, does also add I kind of want to say the realism to it, but like just being able to show like, no, this isn't just a puppet.
Oh, yeah, he's really struggling.
You buy it as this alien thing. I don't understand why it's a tentacle form creature. Because like, doesn't he make this, Channing?
It's supposed to be like a perfect being adapted for the Earth, so I guess, it's the most natural to be like an octopus or something. But I thought, like, the pulsating piece, like, in the front was pretty cool too.
Yeah, no, that looked very good. What did we think of? We've gotten pretty far into this podcast without even mentioning the the new companion, Liz Shaw. What did we think of Liz Shaw, Ben?
Yeah, I was just thinking that we haven't mentioned her yet. I don't know. There's not really a lot to talk about with her, I feel. I mean, it is only the first story. Hardly any companion is great in their first story. And also knowing that she doesn't have that many, I'm not too invested in her, but I thought she was all right. She was charming.
Yeah, she's kind of like a. I wouldn't go far to say like she's a forgotten companion, but she's definitely not like in that class of companions that we talk about a lot as Doctor Who fans.
Yeah.
Just because of, like we have the next companion, Katie Manning,
Joe Grant.
as Joe Grant, like she stays around for 3 seasons. So it's like we have so much of her as the companion for basically she's kind of when I at least I think of the third Doctor, I feel like many fans when they think of John Pertwee as Doctor, we kind of just automatically just assume that he's with Joe Grant. And then also like we only get 4 episodes with Liz Shaw, so it's kind of hard to like take that into account. But like in this first episode, she is great. She is a very much a for the times I would imagine a pretty modern companion that like no this is she isn't the oh my god I'm gonna just scream for the doctor and just gonna get into trouble. She's not Susan,
Oh, yeah, she's not.
right? She's not even like she's not even like a Victoria. She's more of a in that similar camp of a Zoe that's like, no, this is very well educated woman who is like basically gonna be able to match the doctor in terms of intellect.
I don't know if I totally agree with that.
Or maybe match was a little bit too much. But like you know what I mean.
Yeah, she's not like a screamer like Susan, at least so far, but she definitely fills kind of more of an assistant role, I feel like. Like going back to the second Doctor, I feel like Jamie and the second Doctor, and to a little bit of a lesser extent Zoe, were kind of all in the spotlight. Liz is just there to like, you know, hold the weapon.
Yeah.
She's not that much of an active participant.
But she gets to help make the weapon.
She helps out, but she's not like the leading woman.
No. Like she's very much like I think that it is like you hit it on the nail in the coffin. Like she is the assistant. She's not a companion.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in this first episode, she is good.
I mean, yeah,
Like, but like it's just kind of hard to say more things about her because she is in that assistant role and she doesn't really have too much of characteristics.
yeah. I mean, she plays a little bit of independence, like stealing the key. That's probably the most notable thing she does.
But like after this first episode, it's hard to say like, give me 10 characteristics of Joe Grant, not Joe Grant. Give me 10 characteristics of Liz Shaw. It's like, oh, she's smart.
Yeah.
But like, I think that Carolyn Shaw is that her name? I might be completely butchering that.
The actress?
Yeah, no, it's Callan John. Callan, I said Shaw, like that's the last name of the character. Callan John is like, I think she does a good job with what she's given.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's good.
Like, I'm excited to see more from her and see what she's like for the next couple of episodes.
I wonder why she left so quick. I wonder if was it a narrative thing or did they realize she didn't work and cut her out? I mean, I guess we'll see how graceful her exit is.
Yeah, but like also like you think about it from the previous two companion Zoe
I mean, yeah, I guess most companions are just there for, like, a season, like, something like Jamie is at this point in Oddity.
We have Victoria and we have Zoe just leaving in just one season, but then it kind of changes with the next one, which we get much more of a Jamie type of companion. So, just to wrap up our thoughts, Ben, because I think we're getting to the end here. Let's just talk about the cliffhangers. The first cliffhanger is the doctor getting shot after the wheelchair chase.
Yep,
The second cliffhanger is the doll man has been found by the Autons. That was my note, but I should say that the character's name. What was the character's name, Ben? I forget.
Ransom,
Oh yeah, it was Ransom.
about to be attacked by the
But
Autons.
then he doesn't. I think he just runs away.
Well, yeah,
And then the third one being the general guy sees his Auton dummy.
General Scobie.
If we had to name a favorite, what would be your favorite, Ben?
Probably the second one.
Really? I thought like I was gonna say like this one's kind of a slam dunk. It's the first one. The doctor getting shot is a great cliffhanger.
That is true. I just really like I don't know if it's a shot reverse shot, but, like, of the zoom in on the Autons and then zoom in on Ransom face in horror. I thought that was really good. The doctor getting freaking shot the first episode, though, is pretty crazy. Most of them do the thing that I hate, which is it's resolved in the first 60 seconds of the next episode. Not like the problem is solved, but, like, actually, there was no danger in the first place. Like, "Oh, it was actually just a graze.
Yeah.
Oh, no, the Autons." And he runs away and is fine for now. The third one actually mattered, though. Like, he's actually is replaced. It's not something that's, resolved in an instant, which was appreciated. I mean, it's not really a cliffhanger. I thought episode 4 was an interesting ending, introducing himself by his real name for the first time.
And like, is this the first time we get John Smith, Ben? Does he ever mention that before this, for your recollection?
In the Wheel in Space, the doctor is knocked out, and Jamie talking with like the security for the wheel, and they keep asking Jamie, "Who is this guy? What is his?" And Jamie reads like some shipping crates and says, John Smith." After that, the doctor in the war games is interrogated by a German soldier. Like, who are you? Like, he keeps saying, "I'm the doctor. I'm the doctor." Finally, he says, "Fine, I'm John Smith."
So we do get this for, which makes sense because like the script editor was Terrence Dicks. I mean, who wrote the story, so he would have caught like, oh no, we already did that. We already said his name. So in the Doctor Who polls for the 60th, when Doctor Who magazine asked the fans of please vote for your favorite stories and your least favorite stories, the Spearhead was placed in third spot of the third Doctor episodes. It was kind of in the past couple of polls times that the Doctor Who magazine has done this. It's kind of has been pretty consistently either in the third or second spot. Do we think this kind of matches so far? It's kind of hard with the first one. Kind of, we don't have anything to compare it to so far.
Yeah, I don't really have any basis of comparison. I'm not surprised that it's like top 5 because it is pretty good. And the first episodes of each Doctor are usually pretty good.
Oh, just you wait for for the sixth Doctor.
Really? Is that sarcastic or is it actually really good?
No, it's one of the worst episodes.
Oh,
The first first episode of the sixth Doctor.
well.
Just you wait, Ben. Oh, and I didn't say my thoughts. Yeah, no, this is totally one of the best third Doctor stories. I don't know if I would put it that high. I definitely from the stories that I've seen, I have more favorite third Doctor stories than Spearhead from Space, but this is definitely got to be in the top 5 for me for third Doctor stories.
Mhm.
I think this would basically be consistently, even I think after watching more third Doctor stories, I think it's probably going to stay in that top 5 position for me. So I think that's going to be it for this episode. Do you have any final thoughts, Ben, for Spearhead from Space?
Yeah, it's a really strong start. I'm looking forward to more Pertwee.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the strong classic Doctor Who intros to a Doctor, intros to an era. So yeah, I think that's going to be all for today's episode. Please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. Please share the
Ring
podcast.
that
Ring
bell.
the bell. Yes, of course, ring the bell. And follow us on all the social medias. Please give us any reviews for the podcast services. Share it to any Doctor Who fans you might know. I think that's going to be it for today's episode.
Thank you so much for watching.
Live long and prosper.